Welcome back to TLDR's daily briefing for Wednesday the 23rd of April 2025. In today's episode, we cover the Ukraine talks latest, the Kashmir Terror Attack, and the EU's big tech fines. But first, Elon Musk says he will step back from his White House role. The world's richest person, Elon Musk, has said he will significantly scale back his role in US President Donald Trump's administration to refocus his attention on his electric vehicle company, Tesla. It comes after Tesla reported its lowest quarterly profits since the end of 2020, with shares in the company having fallen heavily since December. It also comes ahead of Musk's 130-day term limit as a special government employee at the White House. For context, immediately after Trump's election victory in November, Tesla's share price soared, with its stock rising on the 11th of November 2024 to nearly $300, a 35% increase compared to the same time the previous year, largely due to Musk's central role in the Trump campaign and his expected influence over the US president going forward. However, since its peak in December, Tesla's share price has fallen as the brand has become negatively associated with Trump's impulsive actions, including sweeping tariffs on Chinese manufactured car parts that threaten to disrupt supply chains. More specifically, Tesla sales in Europe have also plummeted in 2025, after Musk performed what was ostensibly a one-armed Nazi salute following Trump's inauguration. Tesla sales in the European Free Trade Area were down 45% in January, despite overall electric vehicle sales being up 37%. There have also been reports circulating in recent weeks about a Musk-Trump fallout, sparked by the election loss of a Musk-backed Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate to a Democratic candidate at the start of this month, and public dissatisfaction with Musk's steering of DOGE. However, Musk has suggested he will probably remain the figurehead for DOGE until the end of Trump's term, and will make sure that the waste and fraud that we stop at DOGE does not come roaring back. That said, so far Musk has provided little evidence of fraud in the US government's payment system, and has also estimated that DOGE will cut just $150 billion off the US budget in the 2026 fiscal year, only 15% of the $1 trillion that Musk had previously promised to cut by September the 30th. You're listening to TLDR's daily briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's other channels. Today, we released videos on Trump's feud with the Federal Reserve and his threat to walk away from Ukraine negotiations. You can find those videos linked in the description or show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube or Nebula. In an update on a story we covered yesterday, Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly offered to halt his invasion of Ukraine along the current front line, as part of efforts to reach a deal with US President Donald Trump, the Financial Times reports. The FT writes that the offer was made by Putin to Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, and that the proposal is, quote, the first formal indication Putin has given since the war's early months 3 years ago that Russia could step back from its maximalist demands to end the invasion. It has also been reported that the US is floating recognizing Crimea as Russian as part of a potential peace deal, something that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has ruled out. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister said today that Ukraine was ready to negotiate but not surrender, adding there will be no agreement that hands Russia the stronger foundations it needs to regroup and return with greater violence. Meanwhile, negotiations scheduled for today in London between the US, Ukraine, and its European allies were downgraded after US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and envoy Steve Witkoff pulled out of the summit, while US Vice President JD Vance threatened to abandon talks entirely, saying, "We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the US to walk away from this process." At least 26 tourists were killed by gunmen in Indian-administered Kashmir on Tuesday, sparking a massive manhunt by Indian authorities, who said those responsible and behind such an act will very soon hear our response, loud and clear. A militant group known as the Kashmir Resistance has reportedly claimed responsibility for the attack, posting on social media its discontent that more than 85,000, quote, outsiders had been settled in the region, bringing about a, quote, demographic change. The attack in the Pahalgam area, apparently involving 4 gunmen, was the worst attack on civilians in India since the 2008 Mumbai shootings. The killing of the 26 men, of whom 25 were Indians and 1 was a Nepalese national, represents a significant escalation in the long-running regional conflict in Kashmir, though the anti-India insurgency had waned over the past decade. The EU has hit big tech firms Apple and Meta with a combined €700 million fine for breaching antitrust rules, the first such fines issued under the EU's Digital Markets Act, which came into effect last year. Apple was fined €500 million in relation to its App Store, with the European Commission saying it did not freely offer alternative app marketplaces to developers and users. Meanwhile, Meta was fined €200 million for its consent or pay model for data tracking. The scale of the fines have been described as relatively modest, perhaps as an attempt to avoid escalating tensions with the United States, as the EU's regulation of American tech giants has been a big point of tension with the Trump administration. Nevertheless, Apple and Meta have hit back against the fines and will likely appeal them, so the relative modesty of the fines may not prevent an angry response from the White House. That's all for today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, if you want to support the show, then consider grabbing a copy of our physical magazine, Too Long. The next edition, which is out now, covers the world's 25 most influential people, as ranked by us, the TLDR team, and you, the TLDR audience. Inside, we unpack who these influential people are, explain how they got their influence, and tell stories about how they choose to wield this immense power. The entire thing is beautifully designed, contains a bunch of other stories, and runs over 72 pages of our best journalism. If you're interested, you can use the code TLDR Daily at checkout to get £2 off your copy, which brings the cost of a subscription down as low as £5.99. Buying Too Long helps to fund all of our journalism, so make sure you do check it out. You can find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR News production hosted by Georgina Findlay, written by Georgina Findlay and Rory Taylor, and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow.